Hey, welcome back everybody. Today we're looking at factoring quadratics, more specifically quadratics with just an x squared, no number, no coefficient in front of the x squared. So the reason why we want to factor is it helps us to find the zeros or the roots of our function. So if we look at our graph here, the zeros would be where they cross the x-axis. And it's helpful in finding the starting and ending points for quadratic functions. Alright, so what we want to do is, if we're trying to solve for w, which is asking us to find the zeros, right? So solving is asking us to find the zeros, or the roots, right? Roots is just another term for zeros. And we're looking at w squared minus 6w minus 7 equals 0. So we're going to just take this step by step so that we understand how to get this thing done. Alright, so what we want to do is we want to, first step, let's change colors here. So what we want to do is we were going to find the a times the c, right? So remember in standard form, the number next to our w squared or x squared is going to be our a. The one next to the w is our b, and our c is going to be negative 7. It's the constant, right? So we're going to do a times c first. So in our case, we don't have an a, that's 1. And then our c is negative 7. So we're looking at negative 7 for our a times c. And then we're going to also identify our b. So our b in this case is negative 6. Okay, so that's step 1, pretty easy. Right, we're just identifying numbers or multiplying two of them. Okay, step 2. This is where the most math comes from. So it's gonna, what we're asking is, what multiplies to get the negative 7, right? The a times c, sorry. But also, adds to get negative 6, which is our b. Right, so we're looking at the factors of negative 7, right? Because what multiplies to get negative 7? So there's two things that multiply to get negative 7, right? We can do negative 1 times positive 7, or we could do positive 1 times negative 7. Those are the only two ways we can multiply two numbers to get us to get us negative 7, sorry. So of these two, which one of these adds to get negative 6? All right, so if we add these two, negative 1 plus 7, we get positive 6, which is not quite, right? But if we add 1 plus negative 7, then we get negative 6. So this is the one we're looking at. 1 and negative 7. So now what we're going to do that is we're going to write it in parentheses. Okay, so we're going to say x minus 7 in one parentheses. Then we're going to have x plus 1, because it's positive, in the other parentheses, and we're going to set it equal to 0. Okay, and then on to the last step, and this is kind of an important concept, and it's something that you guys probably realized a long time ago, but you might not have a name for it. But we're looking at the zero product property. So notice above we have two things. We have x minus 7, and we're multiplying by x plus 1. And it's going to be equal to 0. So what the zero product property says is that if we're multiplying two things and it's equal to 0, then what we know, then what we know is that either the first thing is 0 or the second thing is 0, if not both. Right, so if we apply that to our situation here, then we know that x minus 7 is equal to 0, or x plus 1 equals 0, because there's no other way to multiply something by another thing if one of them is not 0 and come out with the answer 0. All right, so let's go ahead and solve this. So just adding the 7, right? So x equals 7, or subtract the 1, x equals negative 1. All right, as you get better at this, you might not have to do all the steps and show all your math. You can just look at here, what minus 7 equals 0? Oh, that's 7. What plus 1 equals 0? That's negative 1, right? But the concept is a zero product property. And that just says that if we're multiplying two things to equal 0, then at least one of them has got to be equal to 0. All right, let's do it again. This time we're looking at y squared minus 7y plus 10 equals 0. So step 1 again, we're going to do a times c. A is 1, b is negative 7, c is 10. So a times c is going to be 10, b is negative 7, okay, step 2. So what multiplies to get 10 and adds to get negative 7? Now be careful here, because the only way we can multiply to get a positive and add to get a negative is if they're both negative. If you can remember that, that's going to make life easier. So let's try some things here. I can do negative 1 times negative 10. But those are going to add up to get negative 11. That's not it. I could do negative 2 and negative 5. And when we add those up, they come out to be negative 7. Right, so this is the one we're looking for. So again, in this step, we're looking for two factors that multiply to get our 10, our a times c, and that add to get our b. So the more you do it, the better it gets, the easier it gets. But you're going to have to struggle through it maybe for a little bit. So yeah, we identified our negative 2 and negative 5. At this point, we're going to go ahead and write it in parentheses. So we have x minus 2 because of the negative 2, x minus 5, and then equals 0. Okay, last step, zero product property. So we're saying that if these two things are multiplied together and they equal to 0, then one of them has got to be equal to 0. So let's try it the faster way without all the writing. What minus 2 equals 0? That would be 2. What minus 5 equals 0? That would be 5. And then you're done. All right, so the more you do it, the better you get at it. Factoring is one of those things that never really goes away. As you get into higher and higher maths, you're going to have to factor, and it's going to be more complicated. But if you understand the basics of factoring, then you should be okay. And this might be a little more complex in the way I'm showing you how to do it, but it's going to help us build a foundation for what we're going to do next time. So get your practice.